To the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is generosity, or actually, probably better named, living generously. Generosity is giving more than is expected. And I wonder what our lives might look like if we were to bring that generosity into the actual living of our lives. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Should be an interesting exploration. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, and good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you joining us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's with us. We are talking about generosity, or living life generously. And I can't think of the word generosity without the word generous. I'm sorry, generate ringing in my ears. So generosity is defined as giving more than is expected. And when we think about generating, we think about creativity, bringing energy forward that may be more than is expected, to source this energy from within ourselves, to bring it forward and express it outwardly, to generate. And it's calling upon sort of an inner energy, an inner intentionality to generate something, whether it be emotion or ideas or action. We're sourcing something from within and then expressing it outwardly. And so thinking about living life generously, or cultivating generosity toward life itself, our lives and the expression of our lives, I think is an interesting way to start looking at our lives and maybe what's possible, to live life generously, to engage with life in a way that is maybe more than expected. And then it goes to a question of, what are these expectations? Whose expectations are we being guided by? And what are those expectations? And do we even have a sense of what they are? The challenge that we encounter when we talk about expectations is that they're a projection, right? When we have an expectation, we're projecting that expectation upon ourselves, upon the world, upon other people, upon systems, whatever it is. And so there's sort of an inherent danger around expectations, because what we're doing is we're projecting, and typically projecting with judgment. What I'd like to sort of roll back to is this notion of generosity, where what would it look like to live life generously beyond expectations? And I think it goes back to our very common theme of stepping outside our standard story, whether it be our standard story of who we believe ourselves to be or what we believe the world to be, to generate new notions of the possibilities, capacities, capabilities, potentials of ourselves and the world. So, in thinking about generosity, living life with generosity, I'm imagining that it requires us to step out of the limitations of our conventional perception. And an example of this is, and I haven't read this book yet. I know I hope to at some point, but I think it's called "What If We Do It Right?" or "What If We Did It Right?" And it's talking about creating a future that we actually desire, a future that we would actually like to live into, instead of all this dystopian projection that is so common in our culture. And the idea, one of the things that I read in the description of the book was, um, acting as if we loved the future. So rather than fearing the future, loving the future into being. Rosalind says, replace "I have to" with "I get to." I love that. That simple turn of phrase is transformative. To transform obligation and feeling perhaps trapped by "I have to," feeling at the effect of, and sort of being in a victim role, to transforming it to opportunity. "I get to." In other words, I have the opportunity to, I have the gift of, and the next step in that progression that you might want to try on is, I am blessed to. In other words, I get the gift of the opportunity to do this thing. And I think that you're connecting dots for me, Rosalind, which I really appreciate, to say that our attitude toward life and its opportunities or its circumstances can be generous, generating. And when we get to, that's a whole lot more generative than "I have to." And when we're blessed to, we can embrace something with a greater enthusiasm than if it is foisted upon us, where it's something we have to do, right? And also, "I get to" and "I'm blessed to" brings us into the realm of choice. And it is more life affirming, it is more generative if we're talking about generosity, generating generosity. And so allowing ourselves to be more fully engaged with life itself is perhaps an act of generosity, because we're able to give ourselves more fully to that experience of life, to that engagement with life. And we are generating more vitality, more possibility, more presence to life itself. So the thing about generosity, if it's authentic generosity, is that the act of that giving of ourselves, or sometimes of material circumstances, that act of giving gives to us as well. It's like love. When we give love, we experience love. We get to have the benefit of that experience. And the same is true with generosity and generosity in life. When we engage more fully in life, life feeds us more in a more nourishing way. I think we this is a bit outside the box of how we normally think about generosity, right? But when we recognize that we're being generative, that we're actually in a space of choice and creation, when we are authentically generous, we're also in a state of connection, a greater state of connection in our generosity. If we can take that generosity and bring it to life, bring it alive, bring the generosity to life, and also to bring generosity into the realm of living generously. I think it kind of, for me anyway, puts a different skew on things, sort of shifts the energy of engagement with life. So many of us, and I have certainly experienced times in my life where this was true. It was just like, all I have to do is get through this. I have to get through this to get to the next place. And then once I get through this, then things will be good. And how many of us have said, yeah, when this is over, then I'll be happy. Or when I get this thing or these circumstances, then I'll relax. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll give myself an opportunity to rest. And what we're doing is we're forestalling our engagement with life until life happens. Life is happening all the time. I remember, we only have one life. This isn't practice. This is the real deal. And whether we have multiple lives or one life, the truth, or, well, it seems that this is where we get to put our attention right now, whatever this life is, that it's for us here and now. And so the more fully we're able to engage with it, the more fully we're able to be generous in our experiencing of life, the more fully it will reward us on every level, every level. And so, what would an act of generosity look like for you today in your life to be generous to life itself, what would that look like? I'm inclined to imagine that it looks like greater engagement with our passions and our dreams and our visions for ourselves and the world. That when we give ourselves to purpose, we are engaged in an act of generosity that feeds us, that actually gives life to us. So in giving life to our dreams and our visions and our most heartfelt passions, in allowing ourselves to move forward in the arenas that invigorate us, we are not only being generous to life, but allowing life to be generous to us. And again, please hear that word generosity and generous with the word generate, because we're doing that all the time, regardless. We are generating all the time, regardless of whether we are fully engaged or not. And we are often generating circumstances and conditions that we would say are not of our choosing, when in fact they are on many, many levels, right? Because we're generating a mindset, we're generating attitudes, we're generating energy. So Rosalind says, when someone has lost someone, what can you say for condolences? When saying hoping you are, is there another word to use instead of hope? Yeah, that's such a tricky question. And I wonder, I guess you're connecting this with generosity in terms of wanting to connect with someone. Hoping you are, or even making wishes for people is kind of imposing our notion of what they must be experiencing. Um, it's challenging because we don't necessarily know what someone else is experiencing. And maybe we can say something like that, or I'm so sorry. I just, I'm sending so much love. I'm sorry for the hurt you may be feeling. Or I think rather than, I think that there's room for us to be sensitive to the fact that we don't really know what someone else is feeling. And maybe even saying that, I can't imagine how you must be feeling, just sending so much love and care for you, as far as condolences. Um, it's unfortunately quite trite at this point to say, I'm so sorry for your loss, but there's an accuracy around that too. And maybe offering support for that person, sending so much love to you. Yeah, we all experience loss in different ways. And I guess it depends on your relationship with that person. I often wish people grace in moving through difficult times. You know, what what does the generosity of heart and soul look like for you in the context of your relationship with someone else, when you're knowing that they're experiencing challenges of transition and pain and who knows what else, right? So I think I think we often want to help others, um, because it helps us. And we often aren't in tune with that fact. Like I want to be helpful because I want to be relevant. Sometimes that is a driver and we don't even know it. And in our efforts to help, we compound challenges because it's not necessarily coming from a selfless place. It's often coming from a place of maybe even helplessness, feeling a loss when somebody else has a loss. We internalize it, we reference it to our own losses and our own feelings of helplessness. And sometimes it's appropriate to say, I wish I knew what to say to make this easier for you. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a right answer. This notion of generating generating generosity, I think it comes from a place of connection. And connection comes from, hopefully, comes from a place of presence. It always boils down to presence, doesn't it? But this notion of generating and generosity, allowing it to well up from within, from a place of connection and presence. And it often seems like generating from nothing, but there's a harnessing of a creative impulse and creative energy that is at the core of our being. This spark of life that each of us is animated by, when we can connect to that flame within us. I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw something that I didn't even know existed. And they were talking about eternal flames, that there are actually something like 5, 7, or 9 eternal flames around the world, where there is a flame that is always burning. I did not know that such a thing existed in nature. There's one in the United States, and I don't even know what the location was, but how how fascinating that there really truly are eternal flames. And when we talk about the spark of life, as long as we're alive, maybe this sounds like a paradox, but I believe that each of us has an eternal flame within us, eternal at least for the duration of our lives, eternally present during our lives. And this spark of life, this that is the source perhaps of what I'm talking about with this generating. And Rosalind says spark of the divine. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it's more than a spark of the divine. Maybe it is a full-on blaze that as we release more and more of the overlays, that flame becomes more robust and generous. So I think that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share the both Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's such a gift and pleasure and privilege to share these musings together on the nature of life and being human. And so until next time.